What do these words have in common? They are all Romanized Chinese surnames. Chinese surnames date back over 3,000 years, with roots in Chinese mythology. Initially, only the elite had surnames, which expanded to the populace over time, particularly during the Qin dynasties, BC 221-207, standardization efforts. Chinese surnames are traditionally used by Han Chinese and Sinicized ethnic groups across Greater China, including regions like Korea and Vietnam, and by overseas Chinese communities. A particularly huge group include the various Chinese communities in Southeast Asia, like Malaysia and Singapore. Unlike Western conventions, Chinese names start with the surname. There are approximately 2,000 Han Chinese surnames in use today, with 19 of these surnames used by about half of the Han Chinese population. The most common surnames are Wang and Li, each used by over 100 million people in China. Most Chinese surnames are made up of one Chinese character, but there are dozens of Chinese surnames that comprise of two Chinese characters. Historically, there were two types of surnames: Xing, ancestral clan names, and Shi, branch lineage names. Over time, these terms merged, with Xing now referring to surnames and Shi to clan or maiden names. Originally, many surnames had a matrilineal origin, but for millennia, Chinese surnames have been patrilineal, passed from father to children. This tradition emphasizes a deep connection to one's heritage and identity. In Chinese culture, women typically retain their maiden names after marriage, reflecting traditional exogamous marriage practices where individuals marry outside their surname group. In Taiwan, it is not uncommon for married women to adopt their husband's surname in front of her maiden surname. For example, a Jian wife marrying a Zhang husband would write her surname as Zhangjian, followed by her maiden name. The distinction between Xing and Shi began to blur in historical periods, with both terms eventually referring to family names. Today, Shi can still denote a clan or a woman's maiden name. The practice of not marrying within the same Xing continued into the Han dynasty, emphasizing the patrilineal transmission of surnames and prohibiting marriages within paternal lineage families. Before the Qin, BC 221-207 dynasty, China was a feudal society where noble lineages used both Xing and Shi to denote familial and lineage status. Over time, as society evolved, the use of surnames became more widespread among commoners. The origins of Chinese surnames are diverse, ranging from dynasty names, noble titles, official positions, to places of residence and events. This variety reflects the rich historical and cultural heritage that influences surname adoption. Some surnames originated from state names or places, showing allegiance or identity, while others came from ancestors' names or titles, reflecting respect and familial continuity. For example, people surnamed Kong can trace their lineage back to Confucius. Surnames could also denote family hierarchy, official positions, or general occupations, linking individuals to their social roles or professions. Titles of nobility were common sources of surnames, as were royal decrees, which sometimes granted surnames as honors for service. The Zhao surname represents the imperial family of the Song dynasty. Qian was the royal surname of the Wuyue kingdom. Sun came from the consort of a Wuyue king, and Li was from the rulers of the southern Tang kingdom. The compilation of common surnames during the Song dynasty, 961-279 AD, led to the term 100 family surnames, or Baijiaxing in Chinese, which symbolizes the common people in China. It is a traditional Chinese text from the Northern Song era, listing 411 surnames, later expanded to 504. These include 444 single surnames and 60 compound surnames, and it remains widely recognized and used for educational purposes. The order of surnames in Baijiaxing isn't based on population size, but rather historical and political significance in ancient China. For instance, The first few surnames like Zhao, Qian, Sun, and Li were prominent in the region where the book originated. Ethnic and religious influences also shaped surname choices, particularly among non-Han groups, and during periods like the Ming dynasty when Sinicization policies were enforced. Changes in surnames have occurred throughout history for various reasons, including favor from rulers or the need to avoid persecution or conflict. The name may also be changed by simplification of the writing. Romanization of Chinese names in the past few centuries have led to much confusion. To begin with, the Mandarin Chinese that most Chinese speak today is a relatively recent event. It became the national language only in the early 20th century. There are dozens of Chinese dialects and subdialects. Within Chinese social or cultural discourse, there is not a common Mandarin identity based on language. Rather, there are strong regional identities centered on individual dialects because of the wide geographical distribution and cultural diversity of their speakers. There are still millions of people speaking their traditional or ancestral dialects, which may sound very different from Mandarin Chinese. This phenomena posed an interesting challenge for the romanization of Chinese names back in the last century. Different systems are used across mainland China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and other Asian territories. The romanization of Chinese surnames differs by region, impacting their transliteration and pronunciation in Roman alphabets used in mainland China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and other parts of Asia. In mainland China, the Hanyu Pinyin system is standard for romanizing Mandarin, while Taiwan uses multiple systems including Hanyu Pinyin and Tongyong Pinyin, reflecting a mix of phonetic approaches. In Hong Kong, the government's Cantonese romanization system is standard, but there's allowance for registering names in Hanyu Pinyin, showing flexibility in name registration practices involving romanization. Similarly, Korea and Japan have their own systems, different from the other systems mentioned here. Attempted English pronunciations of Chinese names were done in other Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and Vietnam. However, the same Chinese character had different pronunciations because of the different language and dialect groups. For example, pan could be pan or fuan in Taiwan, fan, poon or pun in Hong Kong, pun in Macau or fua, pan, pang, fang or pua in Malaysia and Singapore. To further complicate things, using the example above, Pang could refer to different Chinese surnames which had totally different Hanyu Pinyin. It was also a common practice to add apostrophes, in the case of compound surnames, making romanization of these surnames even more complicated. Other countries like Indonesia and Thailand have romanized the surnames into their own languages. To further complicate things, the romanized names did not take into consideration the intonations of the pronunciations. While there are only 4 intonations in Mandarin, there are 8 intonations in Cantonese. Therefore, it would be nearly impossible to deduce the real Chinese surname of a person based on his romanized name, as written in his passport or identity card. In summary, Chinese surnames carry deep cultural, social, and historical significance, representing lineage, identity, and ancestral heritage across generations.